I never thought a simple night with my babysitter would turn into something I'd never forget. It all started when my parents had to leave town for the weekend, and they called our usual babysitter, Megan, to watch me. She'd been babysitting me for years, so I trusted her. But that night, something felt different. I couldn't tell if it was just my imagination or if Megan was acting strange. She seemed overly excited, almost nervous, and kept checking her phone like she was waiting for something. At first, everything was normal. We ate dinner, watched a movie, and played with my dog, Max. He's a big golden retriever, always full of energy, always happy. Megan had always liked him, and he adored her. But then, as the night went on, she started acting weird. She kept looking at Max and then at me, like she had an idea she wasn't sure about. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "Hey, let's make a video with Max." I didn't think much of it. We'd made funny videos before, little clips of Max doing tricks or playing around, so I shrugged and said, "Okay, what kind of video?" Megan's smile widened. "Something fun, something different." She grabbed her phone, and I could see she had already opened the camera. That's when I started feeling uneasy. There was something about the way she was looking at me, like she was waiting to see how I'd react. "What do you mean, different?" I asked, hesitating. She knelt down next to Max, scratching behind his ears. "Just trust me. It'll be hilarious." I wanted to trust her, I really did, but something in my gut told me that this wasn't like the other times we'd filmed videos. Megan wasn't laughing or being goofy like usual. She was serious, almost too serious, and it made my stomach twist into knots. Then she said something that made my heart race, something that made me question everything I thought I knew about her. "Don't worry," she whispered. "Nobody will know." That's when I realized this wasn't just some silly video. It was something else entirely, something I wasn't sure I wanted to be a part of. But before I could even say no, she hit record. And that's when everything changed. I felt frozen in place as Megan pointed the camera at me. Max wagged his tail, completely unaware that something wasn't right. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know why, but I felt this strange pressure, like Megan was waiting for me to do something, but I had no idea what. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Megan just grinned. "Relax, it's just a fun video. Trust me." But that was the problem. Suddenly, I wasn't sure if I did trust her. She had always been the cool babysitter, the one who let me stay up late and sneak extra snacks when my parents weren't around. But tonight, there was something off about her. It was the way she kept glancing at her phone, the way she was so eager to start filming without even telling me what the video was supposed to be about. Max barked playfully and nudged my leg, probably thinking I had a treat for him, but I could barely focus on him. My eyes were locked on Megan's phone, watching as the red recording light blinked at me. "Okay," she said, her voice lighter now, playful, like she was trying to make me relax. "All you have to do is—" Her phone buzzed. Megan's face changed instantly. She pulled it close to her face and read whatever message had popped up. For the first time that night, I saw something that looked like hesitation cross her face. "Who's that?" I asked, taking a step closer. Megan clicked the screen off and shoved the phone into her pocket. "No one. Just... Look, let's just do the video, okay?" Now I knew something was really wrong. Megan was always glued to her phone, always texting her friends, but this time she didn't want me to see. I swallowed hard. "I don't know, Megan. I don't really feel like making a video anymore." She let out a small laugh, but it sounded forced. "Come on, don't be like that. It's just for fun." But it didn't feel fun. It felt weird. Max, still full of energy, jumped up and licked my face, completely clueless about the tension building in the room. I wished I could be like him, carefree, happy, not worried about whatever was happening right now. Then, Megan's phone buzzed again. This time she didn't even check it. She just stared at me, waiting. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't just about the video. There was more to it, something she wasn't telling me. And for the first time that night, I felt truly afraid. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Megan was still smiling, but it didn't feel real anymore. It was like she was trying too hard, like she was forcing it. My stomach twisted, and I glanced down at Max, hoping he would somehow give me a reason to laugh, to feel normal again. But even he seemed unsure now, his ears twitching as if he could sense my unease. Megan shifted her weight from one foot to the other like she was growing impatient. Come on, she said, her voice quieter now. Just one video, that's it. I hesitated. But what kind of video? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for her phone, but this time she didn't point the camera at me. She just stared at the screen, biting her lip. It was like she was waiting for instructions. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't her idea. Someone else was telling her to do this. The thought made my skin crawl. I took a step back, gripping the edge of the couch. Megan, who are you talking to? She blinked, caught off guard. What? No one. Then show me your phone. For the first time, she looked nervous. She tucked the phone behind her, shaking her head. It's not a big deal, okay? Just forget it. But I couldn't. I could hear the faint buzz of another message coming in. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. And whatever they wanted Megan to do, I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want to be part of it. And then, Max let out a low growl. Not playful, not excited. A warning. Max's growl sent a chill down my spine. He never growled at Megan before. Never. My hands felt clammy, and my breath came out uneven as I stared at her. She wasn't smiling anymore. She just stood there, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Megan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Who's texting you? She didn't answer. She just stared at me, as if trying to decide something. Then, slowly, she glanced down at Max. His body was tense, his ears pinned back. He was watching her too, like he knew something I didn't. Another buzz. Megan flinched. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. If it's no big deal, then show me your phone. She shook her head. I can't. My stomach twisted. Why not? She hesitated, then finally mumbled. Because they said not to. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. There really was someone else behind this. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. Who was texting her? What did they want, and why was she listening to them? Max let out another low growl, stepping protectively in front of me. His fur bristled, and for the first time I wasn't just scared, I was terrified. Then, Megan's phone rang, a sharp, loud ringtone that echoed through the room. She stared at the screen, frozen. I could see the name, but it wasn't a name at all, just a single word. Watching! Megan's hands shook as she turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. And that's when I realized she wasn't just part of this, she was trapped in it too. Megan's face was pale as she stared at the screen. The word watching glowed back at her like it was alive, like it could see us. My heart pounded so hard I thought Megan could hear it. Max stayed close to me, his muscles tense, his growls low and steady. He knew something was wrong. We both did. Megan's hands shook as she pressed the decline button, but almost instantly another message appeared. This time, she gasped. I inched forward, trying to see, but she turned the phone away. Megan, what does it say? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She swallowed hard, still staring at the message like she was trying to process it. They said I have to do it now, she muttered. Do what? I asked, my pulse racing. Megan blinked rapidly, her breathing uneven. They said, if I don't, they'll come here. The air in the room felt heavier, like the walls were closing in. I didn't understand. Who was coming? Why was Megan so afraid? I wanted to believe this was just some kind of joke, but I could see it in her eyes. It wasn't. Then, suddenly, a notification popped up on my phone. I grabbed it off the couch, my hands shaking as I looked at the screen. My stomach dropped. It was a video of our house. Someone was outside. The camera shook slightly, like whoever was holding it was moving. It was dark, but I could still make out the front porch, the lights glowing faintly from the living room window. I spun toward Megan, my chest tightening. Megan, they're here. She clutched her head, squeezing her eyes shut like she was trying to block everything out. I didn't think they'd actually. She stopped herself, her breathing ragged. Max let out a sudden bark, loud and sharp, his eyes locked on the front door. My stomach twisted as I followed his gaze. A shadow moved past the window. Someone was outside. Megan gasped. I didn't want this to happen. The doorknob rattled. I felt paralyzed. My mind screamed at me to run, to hide, to do something, but I couldn't move. Then the phone buzzed again. One last message. Open the door. Now. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Max barked furiously, his body low and ready like he was preparing to lunge. Megan looked at me, her eyes full of panic. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I gripped my phone so tightly my fingers ached. The message was still on the screen. Open the door. Now I didn't want to. Every part of me screamed, don't do it. But if we didn't, what would happen? Then, without warning, Megan grabbed my wrist. Listen to me, she said, her voice shaking. They don't want you. They want me. What? My head spun. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a mistake. She stopped, biting her lip hard. I agreed to something I shouldn't have. The knocking turned into pounding. Whoever was outside wasn't going to wait much longer. I backed away, my breath coming in short gasps. We need to call someone. They said no cops. Megan's voice cracked. They said if I told anyone. The lights flickered. Max went completely still, his ears perked up like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then, just as suddenly, he started whining, backing away from the door. That was somehow worse than the barking. Megan's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen and let out a sharp breath. It's a video. She turned the phone toward me. The screen showed a live feed. Of us. My stomach dropped. The angle was high, like it was coming from inside the house. My blood ran cold. Megan, they're already here. Before she could respond, the front door unlocked. The handle twisted. The door creaked open, just an inch. Max let out a deep, terrified whimper. I reached for Megan, but then, before I could even blink, she yanked the door open herself. A freezing gust of wind rushed inside, sending a chill down my spine. My body tensed, waiting for something to come in. But the porch was empty. No one was there. Megan stepped outside, looking around wildly. "Where are you?" she yelled. "I did what you wanted." I stood frozen, watching as she turned in circles, waiting for something to happen. Then her phone buzzed one last time. She looked down. Her face drained of all color. I moved closer, my breath shaky. What does it say? She slowly turned the screen toward me. Just 2 words. Look up. Megan's hands trembled as she gripped her phone. My breath hitched as I slowly followed her gaze upward. The porch light flickered, casting long, eerie shadows across the ceiling. For a moment, everything was silent. Too silent. Even Max, who had been growling nonstop, had gone completely still. Then something shifted. A faint creak, almost too soft to hear, came from above us. My chest tightened as I strained my eyes, trying to make out what was there. The roof? The balcony? The darkness made it impossible to tell. But someone, or something, was up there, watching us. Megan let out a shaky breath. "I can't do this," she whispered. Before I could stop her, she turned and ran back inside, slamming the door behind her. I barely had time to react before Max bolted in after her, his tail tucked between his legs. I hesitated for a split second. Then, with my heart pounding, I followed, locking the door behind me. Megan paced the living room, her phone clutched in her hands. "This isn't over," she muttered, her voice frantic. "They're still here." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that it was all just some sick prank. But deep down, I knew the truth. Whoever had been outside, whoever had sent those messages, they had been inside the whole time. Max whimpered, curling up beside the couch. His eyes darted around the room, ears twitching, like he was still hearing something we couldn't. Megan's phone buzzed again. She flinched but didn't look. Neither of us wanted to know what it said. Instead, she powered it off and tossed it onto the table. "I don't care anymore," she whispered. "I'm done." I swallowed hard. What if they're not? Megan didn't answer. She just hugged herself, staring at the dark window. The air in the house felt heavier, like something unseen was still lurking in the shadows. But after a long, tense moment, nothing happened. The messages stopped. The knocking never came back. And whatever had been outside, or inside, was gone. But even as the night stretched on, neither of us slept, because we both knew the truth. They had been watching, and whoever they were, they still could be.